The trachea, of course, turn into the bronchi, which then lead into the lobes of the lungs. You've got a left anterior, a left medial, and a left posterior. Left meaning related to the animal, so it's on your right side, if you look at it from here. And then there should also be an anterior right, a medial right, and a posterior right. And then right underneath the heart, when you pull up the heart, in between the diaphragm and the heart is another single lobe that's known as the
accessory lobe.
Accessory lobe. Okay, on the heart itself is a sac, which has not been removed here. This is known as the pericardium. Okay, in between. So if I have a probe here, and I go in between the heart and the actual sac, I'm in the pericardial cavity. Notice that that is a cavity surrounding just the heart, so it's protecting the heart. If I remove that in the front, I can't see it on here, but I'm sure most of you have seen it on your cat. There's a very small atrium on one side, another one on the other side, and then the ventricles on each side are really tough and much longer, right? So if I want to pin the atrium, I have to pin it right on the top here, and I would have to do it on a cat where the pericardial cavity or sac has been removed. Okay? And of course here's the diaphragm. Now in terms of the actual cavities, and I've explained it to most of you already, you can have a mesentery or connective tissue that protects the organs and the organ cavity. We have, of course, three different cavities. We have the pericardial cavity, the pleural cavity on both sides, and then the peritoneal cavity. If you put a pin right on the side of these cavities, on the outside of these cavities, so that would be either here, this would be called parietal. And since this is the pleural cavity, this is parietal pleura. Same thing over here. If I touch this pericardial cavity and this pericardial sac, this is called the parietal pericardium, the actual sac. Okay. Right here, where you all dissected through, as well as on this side, all of this on the inside surrounds the peritoneal cavity. That's a parietal peritoneum. Okay. Visceral is another term. Viscera means organ, so related to the organs. If I want to pin the visceral pleura, I would be pointing right on the organ. So the connective tissue on the lungs, anywhere, any of these lobes of the lungs, is called visceral pleura, as opposed to parietal pleura. If I poke right on the heart, not on this sac, that would be visceral pericardium, right? Visceral peritoneum would be any of these organs with their protective outer layer. So it could be here, it could be there, it could be there, it could be anywhere here. So know the difference between viscera and parietal. Okay, so that we got the lungs, the pericardial cavity, ventricles, and atria. Okay, now let's go into the peritoneal cavity. Of course, we've got the liver with the multiple lobes. We've got the stomach. We've got the spleen here. We've got the kidney here. There's one on the other side as well, down here, generally colored blue. You've got, it gets a little more tricky down here. You've got intestines, large and small intestines, and then down here, you've got the single urinary bladder, or down here. Okay. This is a male cat, so if you wanted to find the reproductive organs as opposed to in the shark, where the gonads were right here and there, they're of course all down here. The female ovaries would still be somewhere up here. I don't know if any of you have a female cat. Anyone notice the reproductive organs? Okay. All right. So let's start with the liver. We have the left medial lobe. Left lateral lobe on the side. We have a left medial lobe, and then we've got a quadrate lobe right here, and then there's a right medial lobe. Right in between the quadrate lobe and the right medial lobe is the gallbladder, right there. Okay. Now, many of you have asked, where is the common bile duct? It's not very easy to find, but just believe me that between the gallbladder and the duodenum here, in this connective tissue, there is a duct that runs there, known as the common bile duct. So that's quadrate lobe, right medial lobe, and then you've got two right lateral lobes, right lateral anterior and right lateral posterior. And then right in the center here is a single unpaired lobe that sticks straight up, is known as the caudate lobe. That you will not find unless you lift this up. Did I mention the accessory lobe of the lung? I did. Okay. So let's go into the stomach now. The stomach, when it comes out of at the bottom here, when it comes out of the diaphragm, of course, it's really hard to see the esophagus, but as soon as it turns into the stomach, this first part is known as the cardia. Once it starts widening, that first part, when it widens, is known as the fundus. And the main body of the stomach, when I hold the main stomach here, is known as the corpus, Latin for body. Once it turns back up, right before you hit the duodenum here, you see it starting to get thinner and thinner, narrow and narrow and narrower, until it hits the narrowest part, and if you touch that, it's really tight. That's the pyloric sphincter. This region here is actually known as the pylorus, but that you don't need to know. As soon as after you hit the pyloric sphincter, you have the duodenum, which is the first part of the lesser intestine. It's got this part right here going straight, and this part going down. Okay, so all of this part, right after the pyloric sphincter, all the way down before it starts to go crazy in the jejunum and ileum, that is all duodenum. Then, once it starts to turn into the lesser intestines, you can actually notice that now it's highly highly supplied with blood vessels. This is, of course, because this is where absorption of nutrients happens. If I would pin the jejunum, which is the first part of the smaller intestine, I would pin it right after the duodenum, so somewhere over here. Okay, somewhere in the middle here, the jejunum turns into the ileum, and the ileum is the last part. And now I'm just keep going until I find this part where you can see the lesser intestine starting to widen into the greater intestine. So if I would put a pin right there, you know you're on the lesser intestine, but you're right next to the greater intestine, so you are on the end part of that, which is known as the ileum. Right at the intersection of the greater intestine, or the colon, and the lesser intestine is this small part right here. This part right here, that is known as the cecum. So in a cat, of course, it's very small because it's a carnivore. In us, it's very small. But in herbivores, this would be a huge paired organ. Okay. Now the colon doesn't just go straight down into the rectum. It actually goes. The way I have it oriented, it actually should be oriented like this. So once the lesser intestine goes into the greater intestine where the cecum is, the first thing it does, it goes back up just a little bit. So this part here, where it goes back towards the head, is known as the ascending colon. Then it makes a curve to the other end of the body, which in this cat it doesn't do. But this part here, where it has gone up and goes sideways, that's the transverse part. There's probably better cats for that. And then it starts to go straight down. So it kind of goes up, sideways, and then down. Up is ascending, sideways is transverse, down is descending colon. So if I put my finger all the way in there, I'm in the rectum. And that's it, right? Did I miss anything?